Didn't seem like it was really well thought out.
I didn't see anywhere any washrooms. I didn't see any support at all.
Yesterday was a good day for our city overall.
We had the right resources in place. Is there always room for improvement? Yes.
The Raptors parade may be just a memory, but hard questions remain about whether officials were fully prepared for such a massive celebration. Those involved in planning the event say for the most part it was a huge success, but there is some criticism tonight over what some see as shortcomings in the planning. Chris Glover is standing by live at Nathan Phillips Square for us. And Chris, we have a better sense tonight of just how many people were there with us yesterday.
And that's coming from the TTC. They just released new information tonight. They estimate there were 2.7 million rides during Monday's celebration. Now, to put that into perspective, that's a 70% increase over a regular Monday, and it actually sets a record for single ridership in a day. But basically, it confirms what we already saw in all of those stunning pictures yesterday. This place was packed. And while fans continue to bask in the glory of victory, the organizers are feeling the heat tonight.
You a champ!
The Raptors championship parade will go down in history as a party Toronto should be proud of. Sadly, though, there will forever be an asterisk in the books. A shooting sent people fleeing.
Holding on to the littles to make sure they don't get, they don't fall down. So it's a bit scary.
Christina Whalen-Chabot was with her 2 daughters. They're all safe, but her friend in another part of the square was trampled.
He's dealing with a torn Achilles right now. And, he's a pretty positive guy, and I think he's feeling pretty down right now about the experience.
I want to make sure everybody stays calm right now.
The party went on, and it was minor in the grand scheme.
I just thought it was a dumb question.
A frustrated chief of police on CBC TV today, fed up with questions of whether his officers were ready.
We had the right resources in place, which had the quick outcomes.
Aside from that one very jarring incident, that the day was overall an extremely successful day.
It was really great. There were so many amazing people out all over the place.
Whalen-Chabot agrees it was incredible, but like many fans, she doesn't understand how there weren't more water stations, bathrooms, or even a medic tent.
I didn't see any support at all.
Many also questioned why fans were not held back along the parade route, the biggest reason why the event was delayed by hours.
I think it was thrown together last minute. That's what it seems like to me. It doesn't seem like it was really well thought out.
It wasn't a security event, it was a celebration.
The city says it took notes, but this was an affair thrown by the Raptors organization.
Ultimately, this is MLSC's party. This was, their event.
No way, no way. This is happening on city grounds. They have a responsibility.
Okay, so she is not letting the city off the hook, but still the questions remain for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, so we put those questions to them. They released a statement, and they didn't answer any of our questions in that statement, in fact, but what they did say was that they would be holding a debrief over how things went yesterday so that they could learn from any mistakes that might have been made, because they are saying that they hope that there will be more celebrations in the future. We also want to give you a sense of the fact that this really was a dynamic situation. We have a time-lapse video that I want to show you as well. In that video, you can really see along University Avenue how the crowds ebbed and flowed throughout the afternoon yesterday. And that, of course, was part of the reason why things were so delayed, because there were fans in the way. And in many cases, that was because there weren't barricades. Now, that was a conscious decision that was made by the organizers. They wanted to give people the chance and the opportunity to get as close to those buses as they possibly could, and that is one thing that really stuck out for a lot of fans, something that they really loved about the experience yesterday. But because it did cause some problems and some delays yesterday, you can imagine that that will be a part of that debrief that we know MLSC is doing tonight. Dwight?
Yeah, we do hope to do this again, and we hopefully will learn some lessons from it. Thank you for that, Chris. Meanwhile, police say they're still looking for a person of interest in connection with the shooting during the celebration. The chief saying today the guns they seized after the incident do not match bullet casings found at the scene, raising the possibility that another person and firearm may have been involved. The shooting happened around 3:45 and all 4 people were hit. None of the injuries is life-threatening. Police have charged 3 people and seized 2 handguns. Now, to put things in perspective, here's a look at the last 3 NBA championship parades and the issues they dealt with.
The day that's been a long time coming, a day that many folks thought they'd never see. It's time to celebrate a championship in Cleveland for the first time in team history.
In 2016, the LeBron James and Cleveland Cavaliers ended a 52-year championship drought in Cleveland. An estimated crowd of 1.3 million turned out. With that, there were reports of shootings nearby, children lost in the crowd, and even injuries after a bus shelter collapsed under the weight of fans who climbed on top to get a better view.
There's Steph bringing out the latest rendition of the Larry.
And in both 2017 and 2018, during celebrations for the back-to-back champion Golden State Warriors, there were injuries after shooting near the parade route, and again reports of children being lost in the crowd and people in the street blocking the parade route. And in a few days, our streets will be filled for yet another big parade. It is Pride weekend. Greg Ross joins us live from Allen Gardens with some Pride festivities will happen at that spot. And Pride organizers say they were watching the Raptors celebrations, Greg, very closely.
Yeah, watching that victory parade, taking a very close look at it. In fact, organizers from both Pride and the Caribbean Carnival, which is coming up in August, both looking at that very closely, saying that there's a lot that can be learned. And today, I talked to both to find out what worked and what didn't work. Can you look at yesterday and take some lessons away from that?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know,
Pride Executive Director Olivia Nuama says overall she thinks the city did a good job with the Raptors victory parade, especially considering how little time they had to put it together.
you know that when you turn around a parade in 3 or 4 days, that something is going to get missed.
She says first and foremost, they needed more barriers set up along the route. Fans pushed forward, hoping to get closer to buses carrying players, at times bringing the parade to a complete halt and delaying their arrival at Nathan Phillips Square by more than 2 hours.
The reason for things like barricades, the reason that you have officers placed at intersections is precisely to manage the crowd.
There were also several reports of people suffering from dehydration and heat exhaustion.
There's a lot of things that should have happened that didn't happen yesterday.
Christopher Alexander is the Chief Operations Officer for the Caribbean Carnival. He says with crowds of that size, washrooms and rest areas need to be provided, and organizers need to make sure everything is easy to find.
Enough communication and signage to make sure that people know exactly where they're supposed to go. In terms of the route, marshals along the route to make sure that people know that the parade is coming in this direction, where they should be, where they should not be.
A shooting that injured 4 people cast a dark cloud over the festivities yesterday. Both Nuama and Alexander say you can never have too much security.
We do have not only the Toronto Police Service, we have pay duty, we also have private security companies, we have a ton of them. We also have volunteer security.
We usually have what's called a command center. So we work together with EMS, fire, police, and all the major stakeholders.
Now, they both admit that it is very difficult to organize a parade of that size. I mean, with estimates of 2 million people being there and limited time, obviously, to plan those parades because the Raptors just won the championship last Thursday, so they only had a matter of days. They also say Toronto Police did a great job of swiftly getting things under control moments after that shooting, Dwight.
It's unfortunate anybody came to that parade yesterday with a gun. Thank you for that, Greg. Toronto police have made a series of arrests in connection with a downtown shooting. It happened just hours after the Raptors won the NBA Finals. 6 people have been charged, 2 with attempted murder and 4 others on a variety of gun and drug-related charges. The shooting happened around 4 a.m. last Friday near a large crowd of fans celebrating the Raptors' win at Yonge and Dundas. Police say the 19-year-old victim got into an altercation with another man who took out a gun and shot him multiple times. The victim suffered serious injuries. 7 people were taken into custody that morning. 6 of them have been charged. The man tasked by Ottawa to look into whether handguns should be banned in Canada is set to deliver his findings. Bill Blair says he doesn't think a ban is the way to go.
We looked at all of the ways in which we can make it more difficult for criminals to access these guns. We also recognize that there are a number of very responsible handgun owners in this country who obey all of our rules. We may ask them to undertake additional measures to secure their weapons to make sure that they're not vulnerable to being stolen, for example.
Blair, the former Toronto police chief, is recommending the requirements for the storage of handguns be beefed up. He also wants to see a crackdown on people who illegally buy and sell handguns or smuggle them across the border. Blair is recommending that assault-style weapons be banned in the country. A Canadian soldier has died in a training accident in Bulgaria.
Next of kin has been informed, and want to pass on our deep condolences, not only to the family, but also to all the members who have served with Bombardier Laboratory. And as you know, anytime there's an accident like this, an investigation will be launched.
Bombardier Patrick Labrie was taking part in a multinational exercise. He was injured during parachute training and died on June 17th. Labrie was a member of the 2nd Regiment Royal Canadian Horse Artillery based in Petawawa, Ontario. He went to high school in Gatineau, Quebec. The Chief of Defence Staff, General Jonathan Vance, offered his condolences, as did Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer. Today, the city recognized first responders who sprung into action during the Yonge Street van attack and the Danforth shooting.
They were traumatic events in many different respects, but at the same time, they showed us the very best of the city in terms of its resilience and in terms of its coming together, but also showed us the very best in terms of the professionalism and courage and compassion of our first responders. And so sometimes, while these things seem to be inadequate as a way of saying thank you, we did think it was important to bring together the people who you see here with you today.
The city thanked officers from the Toronto Police Service, Toronto Fire Service, and Toronto Paramedic Services and the TTC Transit Enforcement Unit. The mayor applauded their dedication to duty in the extenuating circumstances of both the van attack and the Danforth shooting last year, a recognition that doesn't go unnoticed by the units.
Today was really important for our organization and for the entire emergency responder organization in the City of Toronto. I can tell you that means a lot. It means a lot to our firefighters. I'm confident it means a lot to the police, paramedics, and the transit enforcement officers that were here as well. So we're very appreciative.
Toronto Fire Chief Matthew Pegg, as well as the chiefs of Toronto Police, Toronto Paramedics, and the TTC, accepted awards on behalf of their units for their response to those two events and their dedication to the people and city of Toronto. All right, Colette, we have something at the end of the show we need to talk about, but we'll deal with it then. Right now, let's just talk about the weather.
Yeah, folks will just have to stick around for that. I'm looking forward to it, though. All right, let's check out what's going on with our weather headlines, just to give you kind of an idea over the next few days here, and starting with just overnight tonight. So we'll have some tranquil conditions for us, no wet weather coming our way, but there's some isolated showers possible tomorrow. Mostly that's going to stay out of the GTA. I'll explain. Thursday, a better chance we'll see a return of some showers, but it's kind of a one-day only event there because Friday we get to celebrate the beginning of summer. I know we haven't had a whole lot of spring, but summer officially begins at 11:54 a.m. on Friday. So our current temperatures at the moment, what a lovely day, and it's a nice evening we're heading into as well. So 23 degrees at the moment. High pressure's in place, so yes, a little bit of cloud cover, a little more north of the city, and we'll see some more cloud developing really as we go through the day tomorrow. So it's not going to be quite the same as today, but still mild and still a decent day. You can see the active weather well off to the northwest of us. As we look ahead, those isolated showers that want to try and pop up through the day Wednesday, kind of back towards the west or to the north of the city, I think we'll just see the clouds. And so overnight tonight, it's mild, temperature a little above seasonal for an overnight low, 15 degrees, increase in cloudiness though, 25 degrees. And as we look ahead towards that first day of summer, I'll talk about what the weather conditions will be like and the first weekend of summer coming up, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
After the break, Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques is finishing up his tour aboard the International Space Station. But before he returns to Earth, he had a chat with CBC Kids News. That's coming up next.
Every day on board, we are reminded that we are an example, that every day we work together Every day we prove that when countries decide to put aside their differences, which exist and are true, but when we put aside our differences and focus on what we have in common, we can accomplish amazing things.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques is scheduled to return home next week after 6 months aboard the International Space Station. CBC Kids News contributor Sarah Chowdhury got a chance to speak with him as he prepares to depart the ISS.
CBC Kids News, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
I said, "Station, this is Sarah. How do you hear me?" Right out of a movie.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready. Hey, Sarah, I have you loud and clear.
When I spoke to you before you left, so what has been the most exciting aspect of your training? You said that one of the great things about space training is that everyone gets along regardless of their country's conflicts on Earth.
Space is one of those few things that humans do well together.
Has this followed through to your space expedition? What is it like up there with people you're working with?
Absolutely it has. You can see behind me the banderole of flags of countries that contributed to the International Space Station. And every day on board, we are reminded that we are an example, that every day we work together. Every day we prove that when countries decide to put aside their differences, which exist and are true, but when we put aside our differences and focus on what we have in common, we can accomplish amazing things. And we are very proud here, astronauts, to be demonstrating that every day.
What can we learn and how can we implement what you've learned in space about getting along together on Earth?
I think the most important is to recognize that there are differences, there will be differences, and then respect each other for our differences, but then focus on what we have in common, which is huge. And one thing you get obvious when you look at the Earth seen from space is that it's just one big spacecraft for all of humanity. And we're all in the same boat, if you want, literally the same space boat, Mother Earth. And so I think it's just a matter of focus. If you focus on the differences, of course, they're there and they can become, overwhelming. But if you focus on what we have in common, that's when you open the door to collaboration and getting further and maybe one day managing to work together and amazing things that we can achieve when we put our strength together.
You've been in space for 6 months now. Are you nervous about coming back to Earth for your re-entry?
Oh, well, of course, I've gotten used to this place. So any change is a source of stress in a way. It took me a while to get used to this place here. Learned to fly initially. It was actually not so easy. Now I'm pretty agile, moving around. I can be upside down. It doesn't bother me. I can fly. I can bounce off the walls. And, I never lose my way. But it wasn't like that in the beginning. So this feels like home now. And I know that coming back to Earth, I will have to learn again to live with gravity. Learn again to walk and learn to live again with many, many people around me. This will be different, but I have no fear that I can adapt. That's the beautiful thing of human nature, that we can adapt.
What is your message to us and to young Canadians or young kids all around the world?
Life is a series of experiences, and that, what you do with them is up to you, how you kind of process them and the lessons you learn from them. But the journey is as important, if not more important, than the destination. And I would tell young people, it's important to find the dream that's in your soul. Find that sometimes it's a very, very little voice, and we can be afraid of our dream if it's huge and crazy. Me, I had this ridiculous dream. I wanted to understand everything. That's impossible. I'll never be able to do that. But that led me to go from one degree to the next and explore and learn languages and different cultures. I'll probably never reach my dream of understanding everything, of course, but I'll try. And that dream, which is more of a direction than a destination, is what keeps us moving. And if you don't have a dream, then someone else will tell you what to do, and that's just, that's just too bad. It's better if you decide yourself which way you go in the morning when you wake up. So find your dream and cherish it. It is your most important treasure. All right, bye-bye, Sarah.
So that was my interview with David St. Jacques at the International Space Station. I'm so grateful for this opportunity because space travel is such a hot topic. We want to know more about the universe around us. Maybe one day you'll be in space. For CBCKidsNews.ca, I'm Sarah Chaudhry.
Last night, the MTV Movie and TV Awards celebrated the best on-screen work of the past year. Eli Glasner joins us now to talk about the highlights. So, Eli, who were the top winners?
Little movie called Avengers Endgame.
You
needs our help, right? Finally, some awards after they just conquered the box office. So Avengers and Marvel movies in general doing very well last night with the MTV Awards. Avengers winning for, Best Movie. Not too shabby. Robert Downey Jr., you'll see him pop up just after Chris Hemsworth. So he does a video. Downey's got to get his screen time. He shows up to accept an award for Best Hero. I think it's Iron Man should get the award there. Brie Larson won an award for Best Fight for Captain Marvel. She invited her stunt women, which is very cool. And Thanos never to be left out of an award ceremony. So Best Villain, speaking of villains and, dragons and other things, Best Show went to Game of Thrones. So that's a big reward for that show. Final season. Not everybody loved it, but everybody loved, there you go, Lady Gaga winning a number of awards last night for Best Performance in a Movie and Best Musical Moment, of course, for Shallow, for A Star Is Born. Now let's move on to another category. What I like about the MTV Awards, they have these interesting categories. So they had Best Kiss, and the Best Kiss gave us a reunion of a sort between Lana Condor and Noah Centineo. He and she are the stars of To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And what's great about last night, there was an interesting theme of kind of acceptance and pride and seeing yourself on screen. Take a listen to what Lana had to say.
Yeah, kiss who you want to kiss, love who you want to love, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Now, let's keep that pride thing rolling and give a little love to Dan Levy. Schitt's Creek, final season, 6th season. But last night, big category, Dan Levy won in the category for Best Comedic Performance. And just seeing what he's done with that show,
incredible.
I mean, created, stars in it with his father. Look at just how happy he was and what he had to say on the podium last night.
If I have taken anything away from making Schitt's Creek, it's that kindness always wins, that love is best served unconditionally, and that wearing sweaters in the dead of summer is a very, very bad idea. Thank you so much. Happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride. Dan doesn't have to wear those sweaters anymore, but I don't know what he's going to do next. I can't wait to see.
I think that kid has something in his back pocket, man. He may be bigger than his dad in the end. And there were some more serious film awards to hand out.
Yeah, so this is about surviving R. Kelly, and this is a documentary series on Lifetime, big ratings, and actually won the award for Best Documentary last night. This helped add to the Mute R. Kelly movement. And eventually there were charges laid against the singer who was denied all the allegations of sexual abuse. But last night, it was the women, it was the survivors who accepted the award for this documentary series. And yeah, you want to talk about wow, take a look at this moment as they step to the stage.
To our survivors and parents, we know the journey does not start or stop with this documentary, but the world is listening now. Because of your bravery, other girls and boys and women and men are now speaking without shame and being heard without judgment. Because of your courage, you created change and you survived. So thank you.
They certainly did. We actually had a chance to catch up with the executive producer, the showrunner of that series. Her name is Dream Hampton. She was in Banff last week, and she was talking about actually what makes this series so relevant right now. Let's take a listen.
You know, I think that he's actually perfect for this time in particular. There is this way that we are seeing men just do a hard denial and move on. You know, no matter what evidence is produced. We've seen that in the U.S. with our president. We absolutely see the denial and deflection from R. Kelly.
And Hampton was telling us actually that she wishes R. Kelly took a different path and actually showed some accountability to help that healing process.
Thank you, Eli.
You're welcome.
Said we were, after 65, the Canadian government says that you're not allowed to own a house after 65 years old.
Too old to own a home? That's allegedly what one realtor told a senior couple, and then they say he sold their home out from under them. The update to a CBC Toronto investigation coming up next. A man in his 70s has died after a motorcycle crash in Etobicoke. The motorcycle and another vehicle collided just after 12:30 this afternoon at North Queen Street and the Queensway. Police say the man who died was driving the motorcycle and that the driver of the other vehicle remained at the scene. The intersection and a portion of the Queensway are closed for the investigation. Police are asking anyone with information to contact them. We have an update for you on the exclusive story of a blind Toronto senior who says a realtor tricked him into selling his home. The man is suing the realtor and Royal LePage brokerage for more than $1 million over the sale. John Lancaster has more.
Injustice that's been done. That's what's the concern.
73-year-old Harold Verge was born blind. In April, he and his wife moved out of their home on Connaught Avenue near Queen and Greenwood, claiming they were tricked into selling. The lawsuit, which hasn't been tested in court, alleges the Verges were not ready to sell their house just yet, but Royal LePage, Your Community Realty agent Vince Ainello told them they were too old to legally keep it.
Yeah, he said we were after 65. The Canadian government says that you're not allowed to own a house after 65 years old. No senior citizens are allowed to own their home.
The $1.25 million lawsuit also alleges Ainello never listed the home on MLS, the website realtors frequently use to attract a larger pool of potential buyers. Instead, it was sold to the client of another realtor in Ainello's office for $675,000, well below market value, according to the claim. Lawyer Charles Wagman is representing the Verges.
We think he went too far in what he told the Verges. They're vulnerable people.
Neither Royal LePage, Your Community Realty, nor Ainello has filed a statement of defense yet. In an email to CBC News, Ainello insists he's done absolutely nothing wrong and plans to defend the allegations. As for Royal LePage, they say Ainello is no longer with the company. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Remember, if you have a story you would like us to look into, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. OCAD students were turned away from school today after someone made a number of bomb threats.
Yeah, my final projects are going to be pushed back, and I have to subway all the way back home.
Most of my classmates left, actually. They just left to go home or do other stuff, but some of them just hang around at school, yeah.
Students outside the campus were taking the evacuations in stride. OCAD wasn't the only school targeted by the threats. They were also made against Ryerson, Humber, and George Brown. The investigation into who made the threats continues.
Tristan Thompson from Toronto, Canada. Anthony Bennett of Toronto, Canada. Andrew Wiggins from Toronto.
RJ Barrett will be the next Canadian name called in the NBA draft later this week. The only mystery, which team he'll end up with. Coming up in just a few minutes, I talked to the budding basketball star about how he's giving back to the next generation and how he's feeling ahead of draft day.
Dreamt of this since I was a young kid, and now that I know my name is going to be called, I'm just waiting, and I can't hope. I don't know. I can't put it into words how excited I am for this.
We know he won't be a Raptor because our team did so well. We're not even in the draft like that, right? We're too good for that this year, finally.
So cool, though. You got to talk to him. I love that.
Yes.
I'm not really a Duke fan, but he, kind of
Yeah,
almost changes my mind.
Fan.
Yeah, that's right. Andrew Wiggins, right? Old territory. All right, let's show you the territory in terms of what's going on with our climate summary. So this is just kind of looking at this date in history. The record high, pretty significant, 36.2 degrees in 1994. Yeah, that translates, just for any of you who are maybe a little old school, to 97, just over 97 degrees Fahrenheit. Our record low, 2.8. I'm glad we're not there. That's been long standing. So has the rainfall record there in terms of the amount of rain for this date in history. Here's the current temperature. It's been such a nice day. And yes, it feels like spring, even though we're at the last few days of spring because summer coming towards us on Friday, but it's 23 at the moment. We've got nice conditions into the evening hours. High pressure still in play, even though there's a system off to the north and to the west of us. Into tomorrow afternoon, there's a few little isolated showers that are trying to pop up. I think those will stay to the north of the GTA, and instead what we're going to see is a little more cloud cover at times moving through our area. But it's going to be a good day anyway, and the temperature's still towards those mid-20s. So you see a few isolated cells. The model's trying to pick those up a little bit, and something just to kind of keep in mind. You might get the odd sprinkle, but it's really not a big chance of that. What does change is as we go into Thursday. As we get towards Thursday, that's when the next system comes in. That high pressure, that ridge is kind of breaking down a little bit, and so a much better chance we get into some wet conditions for Thursday. Could be some heavier rain too, depending how this tracks in. If it pushes a little further south, we'll just get some light precipitation, but the way it looks like it's tracking, it could be a few pockets or times throughout the day where we get some heavier downpours. Now, after that, and what's nice about this is that it does clear out pretty quickly. So cold front goes through. It's not really going to change the temperatures that much, and we're going to find clearing skies as we go towards Friday. Overnight tonight, a look at those lovely conditions with the temperatures a few degrees above seasonal for this time of year. Then tomorrow afternoon, we have to welcome in a little more cloud cover, 25 degrees. The humidity not really building too much. We don't really see that till about the beginning of next week when we'll get into some more significant heat. A cooler day Thursday for sure as the winds change direction and with the wet weather moving through. But that first day of summer looking good, sunshine in 23. And at this point too, Dwight, the weekend's looking good with those temperatures in the mid-20s. And so far, it's going to be a mix of sun and cloud in terms of how it looks.
Looking really good. Thank you for that, Colette.
No problem.
Now that the championship has been handed out, the next big event on the NBA calendar is Thursday's draft. The Raptors don't have a pick in the first round, but Canada will be well represented. Toronto's RJ Barrett is expected to be a top 3 pick. It's already been a big week for him. He signed a sponsorship deal with RBC, and I spoke with RJ about that and the next chapter of his career. People always talk about how grounded you are and your family background and everything. Is community work a big part of your psyche and like giving back?
Man, it's huge. You know, you came from somewhere and people helped you to get to where you were. So I feel, you know, I have to just come back and, you know, say what's up to the kids, see how they're doing, you know, try to just tell them that they can make it in life too. So.
Yeah. You know, I like the fact there's a smile comes on your face when you're talking about that. Let's look back at the season. I think a lot of Canadians became Duke fans this year because we wanted to cheer for you. How was that season? And I know there was a lot of high expectations going in because I spoke to you before you headed down to Duke.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I couldn't have predicted what happened this year. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that I know that say I hated Duke, but you know you're there, so I love it, and you know it's a lot of fun, and I'm very thankful that I was able to go there.
Yeah, and you guys had a great season. We want to see you win the championship. What was it like just having the media circus around you? Because you guys were the team last year. You were the team.
It was great. It was fun. You know, we were able to just go out every night, and just play the game we love together. You know, as brothers, and as a year I'll never forget.
And you're going to be drafted with some of your brothers coming up, hopefully.
Yes,
how excited are you for this NBA draft, man? It seems like your dad just said that you told him when you were young that you were going to do this.
Yeah.
Now you're doing it. How is that feeling?
I'm very excited. Jumped to this since I was a young kid, and now that I know my name is going to be called, I'm just waiting, and I can't hope. I don't know. I can't put it into words how excited I am for this journey. So. Yeah, man, I'm just excited.
Do you care what number you are?
Nah, I just want to get drafted.
Yeah. Now, I follow you on Instagram, and I saw you posting some stuff of your workout with the Knicks. I know a lot of people. That's not too far from Toronto. We could drive down to games. How was that workout? How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I felt great. New York's definitely a place I want to be. I hope everything works out and I get drafted there. So, you know, but really any team I'll be happy. But the Knicks is definitely the first choice.
Yeah, cool. Mom and Dad kind of met at St. John's. It's New York, so there's some family history there.
Yes,
are you nervous about it at all?
No nerves. I feel like I'm prepared. I've prepared myself for so long. Just excited.
You know, you got that Kawhi look on the court. You know, Toronto, you got that face. It's just like, it's all about the game. It's about nothing else. Your dad really was a star on our national team for a long time. Now he's an executive with Basketball Canada, trying to get us to the Olympics. Are we going to see RJ in that Team Canada uniform going forward? And are you hoping that a lot of guys will come and help us to get to that 2020 Olympics, man?
I really hope so. You know, want to play for my country, want to put that jersey on, want to go to the Olympics, get gold medal, all these things.
You want to beat your dad's records that he set up there for the country.
I'm trying to do more than he did.
Yeah.
And definitely for the country of Canada. I know how much it will mean a lot, so I'm trying to get there.
Well, we hope to see you in an NBA uniform and in a Team Canada uniform sooner than later. Congratulations on the success so far. We know the hard work you put in, and draft night, buddy, it's coming. It's here. Yeah, it's exciting.
Thank you for having me.
Every dollar the federal government earns from this project will be invested in Canada's clean energy transition.
The federal government has approved an expansion of the controversial Trans Mountain Pipeline project designed to carry nearly 1 million barrels of oil from Alberta's oil patch to the BC coast. More on the decision and reaction after the break. It is a decision Canada's troubled oil sector has been anxiously awaiting and hoping for, and many others have been dreading. After years of bitter debate and drawn-out court challenges, today the Trudeau government approved the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It's a twin, basically, of an older pipeline to be built between Alberta and BC to take more Canadian bitumen from the oil patch to overseas markets. But when construction will begin still isn't clear. Julie Van Duzen has more on the decision and the division surrounding it.
Even before the announcement, it was clear the pipeline project was getting the green light. Renewed activity all along the pipeline route, including the unloading of new pipes at a yard near Edmonton, where equipment is being stored for the Trans Mountain project. In Ottawa this afternoon, the Prime Minister made it official.
I am announcing that our government has newly approved the Trans Mountain Expansion Project going forward. We're creating jobs, opening new markets, accelerating our clean energy transition, and generating new avenues for Indigenous economic prosperity.
The plan is for a second 1,000-kilometer-long pipeline to be built alongside the existing one. It starts east of Edmonton and extends to the port of Burnaby in British Columbia. The expansion would almost triple the capacity of oil destined for Asian markets.
We see this as critically important in ensuring that we have access to international markets.
The pipeline expansion project was first approved by the Trudeau government in November 2016. But after heated protests and ongoing red tape, the owner, Kinder Morgan, got cold feet. Last year, Ottawa stepped in, buying the pipeline for $4.5 billion. Construction had just begun in the summer when the Federal Court of Appeal ruled the government had not meaningfully consulted Indigenous groups and had not fully examined the effects on marine life off BC's coast. Today, the government said it's dealt with those concerns and plans to commit every dollar the government earns from the pipeline into environmental projects.
We will invest this money, as well as any profits from the sale of the pipeline, in the clean energy projects that will power our homes, businesses, and communities for generations to come.
But the Conservatives are skeptical the pipeline will be built at all.
We won't believe it until we see shovels in the ground.
The NDP and the Green Party say increasing oil production from 300,000 barrels a day to nearly 1 million barrels means more greenhouse gas emissions, more tanker traffic, more risk of a spill.
At this time, we do not know how to clean a diluted bitumen oil spill.
Now that the decision is out, the Liberals will be trying to sell their plan to Canadians. Up tomorrow, Finance Minister Bill Morneau, who will be speaking to a business audience in Calgary. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Opposition leaders have mixed reaction to the Trans Mountain approval. The Greens and the NDP each oppose the pipeline. The Conservatives want it built, but remain skeptical.
Well, today's announcement should really come as no surprise. After all, this is in fact the third time that the Liberals have approved this project. There was never really any doubt. The real question today is, and the real question Justin Trudeau was unable to answer, is when will the Trans Mountain Pipeline actually get built?
Green Party leader Elizabeth May reacted with a tweet. Last night, Liberals passed their own motion that we are in a climate emergency. Today, they made it worse. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations issued a statement directed squarely at the federal government. Perry Bellegarde says First Nations are not mere stakeholders. They hold title and jurisdiction over their lands, and those rights must be respected. Bellegarde says the only way to avoid conflict and court cases is to get consent of First Nations. A number of anti-pipeline Indigenous leaders in BC also weighed in this afternoon.
The conditions are inadequate, the consultation was inadequate, and as a result of their failure to respect the rights of our people, they are looking at continued court challenges with First Nations.
After consultation with our community and our council, we will be appealing this decision to the Federal Court of Appeal.
Pipeline decision was made after the markets closed, and now here's a look at where they stood before the announcement.
Yeah, I think all governments have to get far more aggressive about addressing climate change.
So what does it take to meet climate change goals? After the break, what Canada has pledged to do to cut down on carbon emissions and why those estimates are expected to fall short. Some startling new evidence to share with you about climate change in the Arctic. This image was taken in Greenland last Thursday, showing sled dogs wading through an area that would normally be ice but is now flooded. On that day alone, the ice cap there lost the equivalent of 2 billion tons of sea ice, according to Danish researchers. They say unusually high temperatures are causing an early and record-challenging spring melt in Greenland. In 2017, between 100 and 200,000 square kilometers of ice sheet had started to melt by mid-June. This year, it's already more than 700,000 square kilometers. It may sound like Canada is doing enough to fight climate change. This country signed the Paris Agreement, pledged to reduce carbon emissions by 2030. But the reality is the government's own estimates show Canada will fall rather far short. For our climate change series in our backyard, Connie Walker looks at what more it would take to meet the Paris target.
Barry and Hermine Steinberg are in the market for an electric vehicle.
It's on.
The engine's so quiet.
The Steinbergs say climate change convinced them to go green.
Yeah, I think all governments have to get far more aggressive about addressing climate change.
The federal government's plan to lower emissions is laid out in its pan-Canadian framework. It includes a carbon tax, rebates for electric vehicles, and bigger investments in renewable energy. But even with those changes, government estimates show Canada won't reach the 2030 targets. So what would it take for Canada to reach its Paris goals?
And let's run it.
We asked Navius Research in Vancouver for help. They use climate modeling to test how different policies affect emissions.
We're going to fall short.
Jonathan Peters is Navius's director.
So we asked you to take a look at electric vehicles.
Yeah.
What if by 2030, 100% of the vehicles sold in Canada were electric?
Yeah.
How much would that close the gap?
So we saw that closing the gap in the range of around 12 million tons. So we're still short about 100 million tons.
Right now, about 80% of our electricity comes from renewable or nuclear energy. What if we took that even further and increased the carbon tax? If by 2030 our electricity grid produced zero emissions and the carbon tax continued to go up by $10 per year, even combined would still fall short by 30 megatons.
In order for Canada to achieve its Paris commitment, it would either have to continue or increase the stringency for the policy that is already implemented, or it would have to implement new policies on sectors that we have not directly targeted for emissions reductions.
The oil and gas industry is responsible for a quarter of Canada's total emissions. Policies like a stricter clean fuel standard would lower emissions in buildings, the transportation industry, and the oil and gas sector, and would be more than enough to close the gap.
All of these possible scenarios would have ripple effects on industry and the economy. Meeting Canada's Paris targets depends on just how far people and governments are willing to go. Connie Walker, CBC News, Toronto.
For more insight into the challenges of climate change, CBC's Neil MacDonald has written an opinion piece called "Talking Honestly About the Carbon Tax Requires Serious Political Courage." You can read Neil's essay on cbcnews.ca. And we will have coverage of the climate change debate and what it means to Canadians. We will have coverage all week online on CBC Radio, the National, and right here on CBC Toronto News. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm going to go Raps in 7. What do you think?
Raps in 7.
We're going to stick with it.
So this is my concern, is that I feel like if I'm not in agreement with you, we do well when we both agree on what they're going to do. But I have something kind of controversial to say, which is I think they might do it Raptors in 6.
Wow. And you know what? She won the NCAA basketball pool. She called the previous series before the championship series in the conference finals, and she called that one. So, folks, we know...
I need to put some money on some things here. We had no terms to our bet.
All I have to say is that she forecasts for a living. So how is that fair? How can I go up against her when that's what she does all the time?
And I have to thank our producer for how they edited that, because they took out the part at the end where
Come
you're
on,
like,
give me the high five. You win.
You did say you'd agree. You
I
said
did.
you came around
changed
to
my
the
mind.
6.
I'm not disagreeing with you on any sports calls again. All right, what's up for tomorrow?
I like that, by the way. Okay, let's save this clip, too, all right? Let's show you what's going on with the forecast. Overnight tonight, a really nice evening. Partly cloudy skies through the overnight. The temperature a little above seasonal, 15 degrees for the overnight low then. And then tomorrow we are going to see times where we'll have a little more cloud cover. Very slim chance for some isolated shower. I think we'll stay mostly dry in the GTA. 25 the high.
Perfect. She wins again. That's it for me and my really smart partner. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Mike Wise has you covered late night.